Las Aquilas.
Why do I feel like that? Like when the ball, oh yeah, when Crystal Ball would do like the whatnot, like less like he has like I feel like that's kind of like the sound a dragon would make, right? Like I don't know why, but it feels
Definitely.
like it sounds like a dragon sound. Now I have that in my head.
I drink and I know things. That's what I do.
Welcome to Drunk on Dragons, where we discuss each episode of House of the Dragon. I'm your host, Jamie G, master of weddings, and I'm here with Magnum Mills, and we're going to break down the latest episode titled We Light the Way. Pre-gaming the Buffalo Bills here. I've got my first drinky poo. I'm just going with a light German Pils. That's it.
None of that Arbor Gold this early in the day, nor none of that honeyed wine. I appreciate that. As being kind of the keeper of the mountains, I am keeping the mountains cold with the Coors Light here. Nice blue, pretty cold mountains. I'm Magnum Mills. Thank you for checking out Drunk on Dragons. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods, all the good ones. We're on social media at Drunk on Dragons. You can find our YouTube channel by going to joeblowfootballshow.com. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Really helps us out, helps other people find the show. Super duper appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And please note, Drunk on Dragons, on top of being kick-ass awesome, is a full spoiler show. All episodes of the House of Dragon and Game of Thrones are fair game for our discussions. Some book spoilers pop up from time to time, but don't you worry, we'll give you a warning if a major book spoiler is about to be discussed. This is your first and only warning.
And one of these days, we'll get him to stop calling it the House of the Dragon. I guess it's just the proper the. It's like someone saying, like, sir, you're making the mess instead of making a mess.
I'm a proper guy, Magnum Mills. I'm pretty proper.
You're very prim and proper. I will give you that.
Proper.
This is We Light the Way, episode 5 of season 1 of House of the Dragon, originally aired Sunday, September 18th, 2022. Directed again by Claire Kilner. This is the second episode of House of the Dragon she has directed. After the previous one, she will also be directing episode 9 of the season. Written by Charmaine de Graaf. This is her first writing credit on House of the Dragon. Short plot synopsis is Daemon visits his wife in the Vale. Viserys and Rhaenyra broker agreements with the Valerians. Alicent seeks the truth about the princess.
Before we take the plunge here, gosh, man, what are our initial thoughts on this episode of House of the Dragon, titled We Light the Way?
They were definitely trying to have some Red Wedding vibes going on. They definitely had some good momentum. It felt, I guess, maybe the most like a Game of Thrones episode, not in the way that like the pilot was trying to kind of mimic Game of Thrones, but at a certain point, it really felt like you were watching an episode of Game of Thrones. I think that's what they're trying to do. So I would say, mission accomplished there. It was a good episode. Again, you're kind of setting up, it's the big one with the wedding before the time jump. So you got a kind of lot that gets packed in here, but it had really good atmosphere. Despite it, they're having to do a lot of different things. I think they've accomplished it. I like the way they kind of paired off the characters and we got to see almost everyone interact with each other. For the most part, I liked it. It might be my favorite episode of the series so far.
Excellent take. I'm going to agree with everything you said. A couple of points that I'll add. I thought it started kind of, it got me right into it. I don't say it started fast, but I thought like all the way through this episode, the timing, the sequences, the guessing game, the introduction of new characters and how they play in, and then ultimately the dramatic ending. I thought it was awesome. So I really like the time of this. There wasn't like a slow part or a lull part or anything like that. As it has been the case in every episode so far, it looked fucking fantastic. I mean, it's visually like super pleasing to watch. Enjoyed it a lot. And I really thought that the way they kind of had this whole thing for a minute, for a split second, I started to feel for Viserys just a little bit. The way they had everything planned out and they just couldn't get there at the end. It just started to kind of turn to shit on him. You start to wonder, and that's part of the point here, if he regrets a lot of his decisions as king. Again, several major things going on here with a bunch of other side things, an introduction of new characters, even though one didn't last that long. Great episode. Great episode. I think it's time to show your O face, baby, because it's time we open with the big O, Otto Hightower. He only gets one scene here, but son of a bitch, I'll be damned if he didn't make it count. And that's when he confronts Alicent about her choosing to believe Rhaenyra about not sleeping with Daemon. He seems to be more concerned with her than he is necessarily with kind of his scheme and scheming here. And maybe we're wrong about Otto this whole time. I mean, for the first time, it felt like maybe that's a possibility that he genuinely was true to his belief of what's right for the realm. And maybe it wasn't all this crazy, Rick Ross stay scheming. Mills, thoughts on that?
That's how it came off to me. This was the most sympathetic I'd been towards Otto. And you got the idea that kind of, yes, he did want, for, power purposes, her to get with Viserys. But I think he ultimately is concerned with her, and he just kind of wants his grandson to be king. He doesn't necessarily want her to have to do all this kind of work or whatever. I think she did her job, right? And I think he's kind of cool with that. She's married to the king. She had the male heir. Mission accomplished, really. Now he just wants her to stay alive. And I think that's kind of interesting, is what will his role be going forward? I mean, is it mostly to try to protect Alicent and her kids? I mean, that kind of has to be what he does from here on out, right?
I still think that there's something bigger at play here. Maybe it wasn't there all along, but now that Aegon is a thing, I think his mission is basically do that. And I think he let on that he knows more than what we're aware of, particularly with his premonition, if you will, that the king is not going to live to be old. So I'm maybe that's not Alicent responsible for that poisoning. Maybe it's or whatever's going on there, or maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a medical thing, but he knows about it and knows that it's grim. We also, I think it's worth touching on the fact that the Grand Maesters, he probably has better access to them than most, being that he's House Hightower in Old Town, right? And that's where the shit originates from. So that's kind of the incubator for Grand Maesters, if you will. And we saw Samwell, Sam try to go there. So I think that this in Game of Thrones. So I still think there's something larger looming, and we're going to be showing our O face more and more through as this series unfolds.
I guess the point is, we think we're going to definitely see more Otto going forward, right? Like, this isn't the end of Otto Hightower on the show, despite the fact that we only got him for the brief one scene here.
Not at all. I think we're going to get more Otto and be showing our O face a lot more going forward. Let's maybe talk a little bit about the series here briefly. He doesn't get much to do in this episode except bleed, sweat, look ill, and extremely frustrated, all kind of at the same time. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego on this one? I mean, what do you think, Mills? Do we start with the bleeding or the frustration, or maybe just go right to the total collapse? What is happening with Viserys?
I mean, we go to the leeches. That's kind of nasty. Like, and they give him the relief. Ooh, if that's how the only way you can get relief is leeches, you should probably see someone about that. And then we also had him throwing up over the side of the boat too. So maybe the Maesters need to invent Dramamine. I'm just saying. He was very, very frail. And you had Otto even talk about the idea when he tells Alicent, like, yeah, he's going to die soon. You get the idea that those in the know, even the Maesters, are kind of like, you know what I mean? They're trying to keep up the good spirits, but deep down, they probably think he's in some shit. And he looks like he is in some shit. You even see kind of everyone testing, like Rhaenys, when she comes up to him, she touches his hand, and the glove like gives way because there's like, pieces missing. And she's like, ooh, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm fine. Like, no, dude, you're not fine. I think you're deep shit. You had the Walter White cough and the bleeding from the nose. In TV terms, you are a dead man walking, I think.
And Mills, on top of that, like he looks noticeably just more sickly. And and when you see him kind of laying there after he gets home from his rough journey, and yeah, I mean, maybe homie didn't have his sea legs or whatever, and we've all been a little seasick, but he was still sick. He was pouring sweat, even after landing. Just barely made it through that meeting with Corlys and the Valerians. This was not good. But then he gets back home, and you see him kind of laying there. And what started, okay, And I love how they did this with him with the little, like it keeps getting more and more and more. He had the finger thing. Well, now both fingers are gone. That son of a bitch is now spreading. He's got oozing gross. For a second I thought it was gray skin, but it's not. But like oozing gross shit all the way up his arm. We saw that terrible, horrible, like what not to do when making love sex scene with him and Allison. I think last episode where he had these gross like open sores on her back. Like no wonder she's just laying there, bro. Like she can't even touch that. Like you got open oozing sores on your back. Like throw a shirt on if you want to bang. Anyways, my point is I like that we're seeing it just grow and grow and grow and grow. And then obviously when you look, in the preview for the next episode, it grows quite a bit. And so that's what she said. But my point is I did enjoy that oozing all the way up the arm. And one thing that I thought was interesting is the junior maester, if you will, kind of suggested something, and the Grand Maester immediately shut it down, which just gives just a slight pause for me. Like, all right, is the Grand Maester just letting this be a slow death? I think it's a valid question at this point. Something is going on in Mississippi, and it's not just the Mississippi mud.
I do not know. Yeah, dude is, I don't know if he had the ringworm, if the ringworm was already there. Did he bring the ringworm? I mean, it's not looking good, man. Like you get the idea of like, he's going to have not even a Jaime Lannister golden hand. He's going to have like a Targaryen, dragon arm or something by the time we get, through the next episode or time jump or what have you.
Yeah, and I liked this little reflection of his legacy, and I really am enjoying this new hand. And it's worth noting that Lionel Strong, Lord of Harrenhal, which connections to Ned Stark's wife. This was pretty cool choice. I think it's actually a really good choice that King Viserys made. I mean, I can't think of a better choice for his hand than Lord Strong. He showed multiple times that he was making not decisions based on his best interest, but decisions based on the king's best interest. So I think that was good, but I really liked the answers he gave him here. And I thought that was pretty cool.
He just almost seems too good to be true, right? He seems to be like totally loyal, very smart. It just makes you wonder, especially when you see his kid off kind of, working. Is he working with him secretly or against him? Just one of those things, right? In Game of Thrones, whenever somebody seems to be like super altruistic and everything, it just makes my radar just perk up just a little bit, because in this world, nobody seems to be that good, like through and through.
Kind of a quiet Daemon episode on the Daemon Targaryen front with that slick new hairdo and that little smirk he's got, but that's mostly because he barely speaks. Homie's a thinker and a looker. Let's start right at the beginning of the episode where Daemon appears to kill his wife, Lady Rhys Royce.
Yeah, this is one in the book where it's a little more ambiguous here. It seems pretty obvious, right? Like he even double checks that she's paralyzed and then smashes her with the rock. Pretty brutal. And Daemon's haircut works. The hood still not a good look for you, brother.
Yeah, he's still not, as bad as he wants to be in that thing. It's too like you're an elf hiding in The Witcher or something. I don't know, but it's cool. Dude, I liked the Red Keep and getting outside of King's Landing and being able to see the Vale a little bit. I thought that was kind of cool. We haven't gotten a ton of of that in Westeros, at least, so I thought that was pretty neat. And this happened really fast for me, so I didn't know if he did something to scare the horse or what happened here with the horse. Did he stat like I might have missed that. Did something happen here with the horse, or did he just cause the horse to jump and kind of crush her on the fall back? And I like this scene too, because I enjoyed kind of their hatred for each other, both Rhys and Daemon's hatred for each other, and just very vile. And man, she throws a couple of real serious zings at your boy Daemon here, and he just kind of handles them like silently, but she kind of hits him with it, bro. And we find out that he has yet to consummate that marriage. Interesting. And she calls him out on him thinking, that the sheep are more attractive than the women of the Vale and all those kind of things. So I enjoyed her little digs and her little zings at Daemon.
I mean, that's two non-consummations, right? So we have a little bit of a pattern going, I think. And I think it's interesting that you see Rhaenyra's allude to it, and then he says it flat out at the end, like he intends to basically take over Runestone. that they passed it to him after his wife died. And that boy, Sir Gerald, right? Like her cousin, he's kind of into her, right? I think he was kind of into her and he was all like, I will defend your honor. And he stands up and he's like, I am making an accusation. That's cool. I see that Sir Gerald has played Clue before. I think he's going with Damon, with the Rock, in the Veil.
Very, very solid. I think he's ready to stuff it in the envelope and put it all the way to the center of the board. It's good to go.
I mean, when I heard they were making a Wedding Crashers sequel, this isn't what I thought, but it works.
It does work. I guess we should talk about the Valerians. They're front and center in this episode, and they're all in on the Game of Thrones. Let's start with the deal they cut with Viserys to agree to the marriage of Lenore and Rhaenyra. Couple of interesting developments here, aren't there, Magnum Mills?
Not as much of a deal, so much as just some semantics about the names. And I guess it makes sense, right? You want the king to be named Targaryen, but this is totally like, oh, I'm gonna like legally like Kanye or whatever. All these guys are like, how many times is Puff Daddy? How many times does he change his name legally? It feels like at this point it doesn't really mean anything. So I think that's probably a win for Viserys for the most part, because what is he really, giving up in the deal? But if it makes the Valerians happy, that's probably, he'll take that exchange.
Yeah, I thought it was he kind of won that negotiation. I mean, they wanted to have the Valerian name, so King Valerian, but it's like, sure. But as soon as he becomes King Consent, it's Targaryen. As soon as he takes the throne, it'll be Targaryen. So thought that was cool. Did you see the situation with Joffrey here, Lonmouth, as the lover of Lenore? Did you see him kind of having a different appetite, so to speak, as Rhaenyra gracefully described it?
We'll get into that whole conversation. I do think it's interesting, kind of they bring this guy in and like, oh, he's the Knight of Kisses. Like, you do kind of wonder how he got that nickname, right? That's not the normal one. And I think it's interesting that you see that the Valerians, they both know that Laenor likes the duck. I guess we didn't quite land on that. Was a good line that the dude Joffrey had when he recounted the story. It's like, so was I the duck or the goose? And I mean, that whole thing was a very weird sexual metaphor, that whole conversation on the beach. I definitely laughed at it, and it was a nice kind of moment. And I do like that this is a pretty fascinating concept for when this is set, right? This is like a true open marriage, when it's like, oh yeah, we will have kids, we'll do the whatnot, but like other than that, like it's totally cool. Just get tested once in a while, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bang who I bang, you bang who you bang. One thing that we should talk about here is we see the kind of players in the Game of Thrones kind of come full surface here, and that is the Valerians basically, and we see that the queen that never was really believes that by doing this marriage, Laenor is going to be in danger, because the existence of Aegon keeps Rhaenyra's rule from ever being seen as legitimate by basically everyone throughout the realm. So I think she's right on the money here, and it may cause you could just see kind of the crazy decisions that are going to loom. It's like, kill your baby brother, or have everyone question your authority and come after you to kill you because they believe he should be. This is a wild game being set up here, and I like the fact that they're right on it. And how could the queen that never was not notice this, right? I mean, she was denied and essentially robbed. One thing that was interesting to me here is Corlys told her it is a wrong he will work at any length to correct. Does that mean that maybe he's going to try to put her as queen? I found that interesting. Like, would he try to like correct that and make her queen, and then Rhaenyra have to wait, and then their kid? That was interesting for me too. But I like that they're into this, and there was a great line in this conversation. And Mills, it's only a phase. Nothing is better in this entire world than betting a woman.
That was he pulled the little reverse Uno card to try to like pull the let's just go upstairs and worry about this tomorrow, sweetie. Not bad, really. I did enjoy that. Overall, you wonder kind of who's really driving the ship here. You get the idea that ratings kind of like was, what I mean? She accepted what happened, and it's Corlys. He's like, no, like they were wrong. You should have been queen. And he seems like the real driving force behind this, and she's kind of agreeing to go along for the ride. But you get the idea she's more worried about the safety of her children than she is one of them becoming the next heir or what have you.
I don't think she believes she can be the next heir, and I don't think she believes Rhaenyra can be the next heir. And so I think she's moved on and accepted her place in the realm. And unfortunately, they haven't figured out yet that female rulers are actually really good, and they should probably, start to accept that, but they haven't in the realm. And she, I think, has accepted the fact that that ship has sailed, bro. Pun intended with the sea snake there. I mean, that she doesn't believe it's possible. And so I think she's more focused on, I don't want to lose my son to be wrapped up and be murdered in this whole situation and just be at war because of it.
Man, one thing I did find interesting is you get the idea that Rhaenys actually lost respect for Viserys because he came to them with the proposal. Like, he's the king, right? People are supposed to come to you and ask. He's not supposed to come to them and give up concessions. Deep down, she definitely thinks that she would have done a better job than him.
Oh, I think he's weak from the time we started this series, with his handling of Crabman down there and all the other shit that went on. So yeah, 100%. And that's got to be such a hard pill for her to swallow. And I hope we get more of her. I think she's a lot smarter than we know, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Valerians. We should also talk a little bit about the fact that we got to see Rhaenyra and Lenore, as we mentioned, having their own marriage negotiation. And as we talked about earlier, they basically agree to produce heirs, do their civil duty, but will essentially have an open marriage for all intents purpose, secretly, of course. And this has to just work out perfect, right, Mills? I mean, every time people are like, no, it'll work, I'll get you pregnant once, and then it'll just be totally open. Like, there's no problems that you can foresee there, right? It'll work really, really well.
And when he says, like, oh, so what do you propose? I could just imagine, like, an open marriage, and it's just like the title card for a Lifetime movie, because these things always end so well that they make Lifetime movies about them. And I did like the whole kind of food metaphor or whatever. And she kind of like, oh, well, we dine how we please, each of us dines as we see fit. And I thought that was funny with the whole exchange between the two. I just really enjoyed that whole part. I thought it was cool that they just kind of didn't beat around the bush, and they just got right down to it, but without actually saying it. I thought it was pretty good writing and pretty clever.
Definitely weird sexual innuendos and stuff like that, but I thought it was clever and cool. One thing that took me back here a little bit, and I'll have to go back to this amazing podcast called Drunk on Dragons and figure out if you predicted this, but I think you may have, my dude. And that is that Sir Kristen Cole was not able to kind of handle just being Rhaenyra's, bang boy. Like, he ain't no fuck boy, bro. And he's not about that life, dude. Like, he doesn't want to be her whore. So I thought this was interesting, where he goes up to her, and I still don't understand why he was plain clothed, but he goes up to her plain clothed and on the boat, and he essentially talks to her about, being able to run away to Essos with her and live free and marry each other and do, in theory it sounds great, but she declines and kind of tells him in a roundabout way, like, hey, but I've got this really good situation. Like, I'm just marrying this dude, but like, I still want to be with you. But she doesn't say it in the way that I think his gentle, soft, I'm just going to call it mentally weak self needed to hear. She needed to basically be like, yo, dude, the guy I'm marrying is gay. We're only gonna like have intercourse to produce kids. I still love you and want to be with you. But she didn't say those things. And I think just simply communication matters, Magnum Mills. I mean, holler at your boy Jamie G for marriage counseling. I got you guys. But communication is key.
There is probably a lot to unpack there. I actually got the idea more that she enjoyed banging him, but I don't know that she really loved him. And I got the idea that he just kind of wanted to love her because, again, his vows were so important to him, and he broke them and needed to be for true love, right? He didn't want to break them just for a bang. There needs to be it needs to be more complex than that, to paraphrase Half Baked. So I think that's where he was going. And you also have to keep this in mind. If they run away together, what does Rhaenyra have? She's got nothing. But Sir Kristen Cole, he might not be in the Kingsguard, but he's going to have a wildly successful career appearing on the cover of trashy romance novels. If you just look, he's got the shirt, the perfect hair, like the 2-day stubble. He can shoot 20 of those things a day. He works 3 days a month, bringing home the bacon. They don't have to worry about anything.
I think that I agree with you in the sense that I do think he loves her. I think all the time he spends with her one-on-one. Their trip in the woods that day where she kills the hog and they see the white stag. I mean, all that stuff. I think he, the fact that he's been kind of around her 24/7, I think he has fallen in love with her, and I think she really doesn't know what love is, to be honest with you, but she wants him around. And I guess when you're about to be queen of the throne, you can have around whoever you want to have around. So I think he's being crazy here. He should just accept his role and be real glad about it. Another thing that was interesting was Rhaenyra dancing with Daemon, and oh man, there's something here. I just got to believe this isn't going away at all, because first of all, I enjoy their conversations in, old Valeria. I enjoy that language. I like that they have that little thing that they do, but there was some hardcore BE. And no, I am not talking about breaking and entering. I'm talking about banging energy. There was a ton of it here between Rhaenyra and Daemon. And I love that she was basically daring him to take her away to Dragonstone and marry her. And so I think they have to, at some point, we're going to have to get, to the end of that BE. There's a whole lot of it. I don't know that I want to see it, because again, that's her uncle. But you do you, Game of Thrones universe. You do you.
And the one thing when they're kind of talking on the ship, I was a little curious, like, how many times did they bang? Was it just the one time? Because I get the feeling it was kind of just the one time. And so he seems like a little bit, maybe way too capped up for the one time again. I think that's why it comes back to him being really guilty about breaking his vows. When she started talking, he gets broken up, the conversation. When she starts talking about the Iron Throne looming large for her family, and I swear to God, she's about to start telling him the family secret. Like, she was about to start telling him about the real reason Aegon came and all this, again, after maybe banging once. So maybe she is a little bit more capped up than we think.
I think there's something there.
She's definitely into him. I just don't like, she might love him, but I don't think she loves him.
I mean, everyone loves their first, right? I mean, that's just, you never forget your first. And so those are all things. But that brings us to Lady Alicent. She's officially entered the game, and boy, oh boy, she's making moves, bro. Lara Strong tips her off about Rhaenyra getting the moon tea at the end of the previous episode, and she takes that ball and she runs with it, Magnum Mills. I mean, she's not exactly JT Money of the Indianapolis Colts, but she was Saquon Barkley week 1 here. I mean, she ran the ball.
Yeah, good job. And shout out Larry Strong. Heavy little finger vibes here off this dude. Heavy little finger vibe. Because he tells her, right, about the moon tea, but he doesn't actually tell her that it's moon tea. He's just, she's unwell. And he tells her exactly what she needs to know to figure it out, but he doesn't actually tell her. So he seems like a slippery motherfucker. So I think we're definitely going to be seeing more of this dude.
And he was just lurking perfectly. Like, this was well played. And he's just creepy as shit anyways. And so, Littlefinger was creepy because it's like, I don't want you left alone with a minor, you creepy perv. But this dude's creepy just in how he looks. Like, his appearance is creepy as shit, and just like his whole way about him. So excited to see more of him too, Magnum Mills. Let me ask you this. When Lady Alicent, when she summons Sir Criston Cole and asks him about Rhaenyra and Daemon, I really enjoyed this scene, because it was like she was really, talking about Rhaenyra and Daemon. He's so freaking dealing with like guilt like crazy. I mean, this dude's like, this is hardcore guilt Sir Criston Cole's dealing with here. He's thinking she's talking about him. I thought this was really cool, but the whole time the scene was going on, I could not help but look at this wild painting on the wall to the left of them that was like a 7-person like orgy where the dick was like a snake going into everyone. It was like real crazy shit artwork on the wall. But I enjoyed the scene, but that was distractive.
Not something like if you were driving, they wouldn't want you looking at that, because that would be distracted driving. I'll give you that. Yeah. A bunch of stuff here with Alicent. You just mentioned how she summoned Criston Cole. So let me ask you, is there ever a scenario where it's good to be summoned? Just name me one scenario where like someone tells you've been summoned and you're like, oh, that's great.
If it's to like, well, it was great for Viserys when he summoned Lady Alicent because he wanted to have sex, but not so
it wasn't good for her.
It wasn't good for her. That's true.
If you're being summoned, if you want to issue summons, you're in business. But if you're being summoned, Not
That's
great,
never
Bob.
good.
I would have to say that's not good. And also, this goes along, like, if you ever are actually summoned to the police or a lawyer and they want you to talk, don't just start confessing like Kristen Cole. I will say that Allison was being kind of vague, but she wasn't doing it deliberately, right? She was just going to ask about Damon and Rhaenyra because of the Moon Tea thing. And then he just, like, straight up just confesses like he's just Usher dropping an album. Just don't be that guy. Like, I really did enjoy that. Again, a little bit of humor in a, an episode that actually had some humor finally, because the show hasn't really for the most part so far.
And you could see great acting here by Allison, the actress playing Allison, because I love just this look when she realizes we saw it earlier when she gets that knowledge that she didn't necessarily come to get, and that the Grand Maester brought the tea. But now she's getting it even more when he tells her the shit. She just, I will say I like that he just straight up was like accepting his death and just asked for a clean death and not like torture. That was pretty dope by Sir Kristen Cole. But I love just her raw emotion as she's finding out what this means and she's plotting her next move. That is big information, and she's deciding what to do with it. So I thought that was really cool. And it was a great kind of Game of Thrones moment where you get a powerful actress finding some shit out and wearing it on her face, but then quickly formulating a plan that is now benefiting her. So I think this was really interesting moment for her. And I think we see it later on in this episode. A switch went off here for Lady Allison, didn't it?
Well, you're right. She went from wearing it on her face to just flat out wearing it. First, for the second time in this episode, first we saw Corlys pull a little hand on Viserys when he showed up and he didn't come out to meet him personally. Then Viserys gets trashed a little bit by Daemon showing up and he lets him sit down. And then Allison is late. Not only is she late, she strolls in mid-speech wearing the bright green Hightower beacon. Like, it's on. This is like, Lord of the Rings. This is like the beacons of Gondor or whatever. This is like an American History X when Edward Norton takes his shirt off in jail. Like, this is like throwing up the bat signal, basically. Like, this is, the Old Town signal, the Hightower.
Yeah, I mean,
signal.
that's basically the Hightower, basically signaling that they're like going to war here, right? I mean, and this was interesting because I thought that the first thing she did when they kind of got up for the dancing and whatnot, she went over and talked to her uncle and talked to the Hightowers, and they were aligned with her 100% here.
Yeah, so no matter even if they took a knee for Rhaenyra, they are going to be on Team Aegon. And you saw her be cold, even though she found out that Rhaenyra really didn't bring back Daemon. She still calls her stepdaughter. Like, oh, no more Rhaenyra. She'd always called her Rhaenyra. Now she explicitly says, oh, hello, stepdaughter. Like,
I mean, shit, man, that leads us to the final events of this episode. We see Lenore's lover, Jeffrey Lonmouth, overplays his hand by letting Sir Kristen Cole know that he's aware of his relationship with Rhaenyra. Yada, yada, yada. Kristen Cole beats him to a just absolutely gruesome death, and a fight breaks out on the dance floor. That leads Viserys to force Rhaenyra and Lenore to tie the knot Spaceball style. Sir Kristen Cole is about to kill himself with a dagger through the chest when he's stopped by none other than Alicent. Certainly wasn't the Red Wedding, but there was some real momentum here at the end of this episode, right?
Okay, here we go. The short version. Do you?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
Good, you're married. Kiss her.
Shout out Joffrey Lonmouth. Like, he had a good and a bad here. On the bad side, like, you didn't need to gossip. Like, you didn't need to go up to Sir Kristen Cole and do that unless he had some sort of plan, but he didn't really strike me as a plan kind of dude. But on the high note, to talk about a built-in BE detector, he could tell that Kristen Cole and Rhaenyra were banging just based off the way he was looking at her from across the room. That's pretty damn impressive. I don't think it could be useful in many things, but a reality show. He could probably have a reality show. So Westeros TV, see if you can make that happen. Like Sir Kristen Cole, like you mentioned, he beats the shit out of that dude brutally. Is he not in trouble for that? Like, we did see that Cole had a knife. Did he kind of get a free pass? I know the fight started and then he just kind of jumped in on it. But at the end, like, he's kind of free, right? When he goes to kill himself there. Like you get
Yes.
the idea that he really wasn't in any trouble for that. I don't know how that works, but qualified immunity exists in Westeros, I guess.
This was really bizarre for me, and this is the only thing that felt like maybe they kind of rushed this a little bit. I don't understand why we couldn't get control in the Red Keep on the kickoff night of the heir getting married. You're telling me there wasn't security up in there? You're telling me there wasn't a whole group to stop any of this shit? Who's to stop like a fight breaking out and somebody attacking King Viserys? I didn't like this. I didn't like that they couldn't get control over it. And to your point, you would think that the Valerians would be like, unless they were secretly happy that their son's lover, got beaten to death. This just seemed really weird and kind of somewhat manufactured for me. This is probably I like the scene, but I just didn't. I wanted something more to it to kind of make it make sense for me.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, it was kind of like over the top comical because you got the thing again, right? Which as he's beating the guy, like all the noise got out, and you get the idea that the entire crowd like just stops talking and just looks at him. And then when he finally goes to the final punch, in my head, all I could hear was the Mortal Kombat guy going, "Finish him." The dude was extra dead. Like that was pretty brutal. And then no one really commented on Leno just going up and like bawling his eyes out and everything. And I mean, that makes for a pretty sad wedding, right? Like he's literally still crying when they're being married. And I'm not joking with Spaceballs wedding. Like it looks like they just basically kicked everybody out of the room, dragged the septon in there and married him. Like the room is just still trashed. There's still blood on the floor. And we see a rat licking the blood up right after Viserys collapses. Like that's a great omen, I'm sure. It's either, a wonderful omen or a crossover with The Departed. I'm leaning towards an omen thing. But again, maybe Marty Scorsese's, branching out.
He might be. Yeah, I mean, there were still chunks of face and brain on the floor, food still laying out. This was really interesting to me that they kind of just like, all right, we're the kiss. There was like she tried to Rhaenyra's credit, she tried to give him a kiss here. He basically just like looked away, and she just kind of like kissed him on the cheek like you would kiss like a stranger that you're meeting for the first time that you have to be friendly to. This was weird.
It was a funeral kiss. It was a funeral kiss.
Not a wedding kiss.
Kind of. She knew what he was going through. Kind of. It was closer to a funeral than a wedding, which is always a great start for a marriage.
Joffrey, I can see his point here. Basically trying to form a weird alliance with Sir Criston, saying, hey, I have my thing going on, you have yours. Let's keep it that way and keep it, protect each other here, and all of us will do well, which is probably true for Joffrey, maybe not so true for Sir Criston, who already kind of is in his position and he's still battling with his own moral compass. Do you think that Sir Criston had enough reason to kill him? Was it just because he kind of figured it out? There was no proof. There was no evidence. Why lose his shit on the lover of the gay husband that's marrying the love of your life? It seemed a little weird for me.
That's what she said.
I think just straight up old school jealousy and impulse control. I think he kind of figured he was fucked. Keep in mind, he confessed to Alicent already. So he knows that he has this, the hammer hanging over his head. It could drop at any moment. Who knows what she might ask him to do to keep his secret? So I think he's just kind of like accepted it, right? As he's beating him up, I think he already realizes that he's going to take out that sword, go out to the Godswood and do the thing. I think that's just like, all right, I'm going to, take somebody kind of with me on my way out kind of deal. That's at least how I read it.
If Viserys is falling unconscious at the wedding, what's he going to do when he's in there watching Rhaenyra give birth? I mean, oh my God, that's right. Like if he's going to collapse at the wedding, imagine when when she's crowning. I mean, geez.
I mean, he'll probably pass out enough times in the, in the pre whatnot during labor that he'll just happen to wake up for the actual birth and just look for the penis, right? Because that's all he's really looking for.
That's all he's looking for. Whew. This collapse here, I mean, they did a good job showing how unwell he was all episode. My fear here is, does it really mean anything other than just signifying what a disaster the situation is and maybe how ill-fated that wedding really is?
I like that idea that is kind of symbolic of the wedding. I guess you could also go with now more and more people are going to find out about his condition because it's happening in public. it'd be kind of a drawn out way to accomplish that. But remember before how, tight they were keeping this, and between all this and this episode, there's got to be, maybe dozens of people who have an idea something's up now, which is only probably going to, push people harder as far as this, the line of succession thing.
What do you think Allison has in mind for Sir Kristen? Is there, and let me ask you this. Are we on BE alert here? Is there a little BE going on with Allison and Sir Kristen?
I hate to say it in a scene where a dude was about to commit suicide, but maybe you can even get a little Stockholm syndrome type of thing going here. But yeah, and you get the idea, right? That if Allison's going to start kind of like coming into her own, and she wants to get back at Allison, banging Sir Kristen Cole probably going to piss Rhaenyra off. So if Allison wants to get back at her, that's worse ways to go. And again, she can also, maybe she wants to also appear on a couple of those romance novels covers.
And she very well could. She could be in his arms, as he's
green dress and everything.
Green dress and all.
You want, girl.
Mills, is she giving you just a smidge of Cersei energy here, with her starting to now look at a human like Sir Kristen Cole as an asset that she can use to benefit however she wants herself benefited? Am I taking the long road, or is
no?
there...
I just don't think. I was trying to come up with a better analog. Like, is she more? I don't think, because Daenerys is like the right age, but again, I don't think that really fits. Sansa Stark doesn't really fit. Trying to come up with a 1-for-1 comparison. I think there are elements of Cersei in there, but there are also, I think, other elements of of Daenerys, of Sansa, kind of all mixed into the character to make her own thing. Really, I do not think this is a case where the show is trying to map any particular character traits from a Game of Thrones character onto her.
Yeah, I don't either. It just gave me a little bit of Cersei feelers, which I thought was pretty cool. That covers the major players. Anything else that we want to chat about from this episode before we move on?
I touched on it when Corlys didn't come out to meet Viserys at Driftmark, but just Driftmark in general was pretty cool, right? Like, it looked, especially the shots on the beach, the castle itself, the Driftwood throne, I thought was pretty cool. Really enjoyed kind of seeing that all like open and well lit and everything. I thought they did a really good job on that. Kind of the hall with all the big, the paintings and everything. I just really enjoyed that. Thought it looked really cool.
It definitely did, and to the point where even Viserys comments that he's used to the impressiveness of the Red Keep, but this is right up there with it. So I thought that was pretty cool response for him too. And I kind of wanted like the throne to be made out of driftwood, and I thought it was
definitely made out of wood. Yeah,
it was definitely made out of wood. We only get that little like side view, and I'm like, son of a bitch, maybe it is made out of driftwood.
There was one more shot when it was actually Rhaenyra in front of it.
Yes.
When they were talking at some point, so that was almost, you saw him, Corlys sitting on it at the beginning when Viserys walks in, but then when they were talking later, it was funny. I thought it was a deliberate thing to actually kind of show that maybe she is the real power behind the throne, because she's kind of standing by the throne as she, gives out her talking to what's looking up at her.
Absolutely. I liked it spot on with all that stuff. And actually, dude, this little dance sequence, I thought that was pretty cool too, bro. I actually liked it. And I like the live drums. Like, this was cool.
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was a good score, I thought, too. Again, Girardi, I think that they definitely remixed various elements of the main theme throughout, especially when Daemon walked in, if I remember right. But yeah, there was definitely some real choreography, right? Like, I don't think in Game of Thrones, I'm sure we've had a little bit of dancing, but nothing like this here. And I can feel this is one of those things that the internet might not like. And we had something like this on The Boys in season 3. Even because you had two different dance sequences, right? You had kind of like the wedding dance with in Rhaenyra, and then you have the big one where like everybody, they must teach it in public education in Westeros, right? This is like their line dancing or whatever, the electric slide or whatever, they teach everybody, like the one certain, like I don't know it, but if you threw me in a place, I could probably just remember it.
It's electric, dude. Boogie, woogie, 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 woogie. Mills, I hate to do it, but we do have to ask the most important question of the day.
And that is, how would you feel about being referred to as future king consort? I think I'd be cool with it. It's like being the first gentleman, right? Or like the first husband or whatever. I'd be all right. A king consort? That sounds like A, good to me, and B, like a good name for a death metal band.
Hey, man, when you got king involved, sign me up. And that is a very good question. I guess the second most important question is, was there enough drinking and dragons in this episode titled We Light the Way?
Ooh, right on the edge. Probably not, if I had to say. I mean, we get one scene with dragons. There are two of them. It's kind of cool in the daytime. And we see Viserys turn down the wine.
Yeah.
Turn down for what? He's off the sauce here. But it did seem like all the guests at the feast were having a good time and everything. So I didn't need any more specific dragons or drinking because it was a good episode. Don't think we need it. It's one of those things I'm hoping they're just saving it for future episodes because, maybe we didn't get Alicent being full on Cersei now, but we jump ahead 10 years. There might be some angry wine drinking going on at 8 in the morning.
We can only hope. I did really enjoy that dragon scene as they're riding in. I thought that was super rad. The dragon, incredibly vibrant color. Thought just it was shot perfectly. I hope we get more of that. Really, really, really cool. One thing that I liked about the drinking is it was like not hidden drinking, but it was like secondary character drinking, right? Like the new hand. The new hand is a drinker. He drinks and he knows things too. And I'm watching him like deal with issues that are popping up, and he's listening. He's listening to what's happening with Daemon, with his plan to take over the thing after the wife of it. The wife dies and all this, and he's just like slowly drinking his wine and thinking. Like, really enjoyed his drinking. I'm hoping to get more of it. So all in all, I'm there. We could always use more dragons, and we could always use more drinking, but this will suffice till the next episode. With that said, it is now time to hand out some awards for our favorite parts of We Light the Way, starting with that hot D, that hot dialogue, which is our favorite quote or piece of dialogue from the episode. Mills, I guess I am up first here. Man, there were some good ones. It's hard to kind of choose, but I really enjoyed Sir Criston Cole as he's kind of spilling his guts out to Rhaenyra, and he's asking her to kind of run away, and he kind of tells her some real shit, man. Like, he's really shaken up about breaking his vow. That was all he had.
I took an oath as a knight of your king's guard, an oath of chastity. I've broken it. I've soiled my white cloak. It is the only thing I have to my fucking name. I thought if we were married, I might be able to restore it.
This one to me was a big deal throughout this because it played out. We kind of get his true feelings of what's happening since the infamous bang scene with him and Rhaenyra. And now we're starting to see like, oh man, dude's got feelings here, and this is tough. He's in a tough way over this.
Wow, I lose the bet with myself for the first time this year. I failed to predict what quote you would pick. I was so sure you were going to go with the Ozark call out. It didn't even occur to me that you were going to go with something else. And just for the record,
Sir Criston Cole.
A sworn protector.
Look at him. The man is fully construct.
I myself am probably going to go with something a little bit more on the serious side and something short. It's what Otto told Alicent when he says,
You're no fool, and yet you choose not to see it.
because she was maybe being a little bit naive about what would really happen to her children if Rhaenyra does become the one true heir and the queen. And I think that's what sets her off. That's what gets her to kind of pursue the tea thing with Criston Cole, which leads her to finding out about him in Rhaenyra, which leads her to put on that green dress, which leads Hightower to back her. It's always one thing, right? There's always that one kind of straw that breaks the camel's back, and I think that line from Otto might have been the thing that sent Alicent kind of maybe searching for something past to just being kind of her blind friendship to Rhaenyra.
Well, in an episode and in a show that doesn't have a ton of humor, Magnum Mills, the cunt struck line was absolutely hilarious and amazing. And I was like, oh, Ruth, I love you, Ruth. Good call there. Check out Ozark podcast if you're just doing Ozark or if you want to revisit. That brings us to the hot fire of the week, sponsored by our boy Dylan, because all he does is Dylan, spitting the hot fire. And this is basically our favorite moment or scene from this episode. We light the way. Mills, you're up first here, brother.
Man, I really want to go with Damon just walking into the feast, and you can almost hear the record scratch, but that's really short. That's more of just a very short moment. Scene on the boat was great. I don't know else it was great, but I'm going to give it to that scene where Viserys is laying there all messed up with all the whatnot all over his arm, and he's talking with Lionel Strong, and he's really kind of contemplating, like, how are people going to remember him? And I think that's going to have an impact on how he lives out the final part of his life, more so looking toward his reputation in the future than maybe necessarily the immediate result or how it affects the realm.
Great choice. Man, you could make a case for kind of all the big scenes throughout this episode. I'm going to give it that final scene because after all the dust settled and we're kind of, watching the tragedy and the failure of trying to pull off this wedding, and we see the blood on the floor, we see the chunks of face and brain on the floor, we see the rat eating it, we see the food out starting to spoil, and it's this rushed wedding where nobody wants it. It doesn't even look like it should be happening. That is not how any of us want our wedding to go, let alone the future heir. I mean, shit, dude, I could have taken him to Vegas and we could have did a better job. I mean, this was bad. But I think it's so telling for what's to come. That marriage is destined to fail. This is a really big deal. It's going to cause a lot of choices, a lot of pain, a lot of death, and a lot of divide throughout the realm. So I think it really played out well. And the final kind of symbolic scene with Viserys collapsing, I think that's what they were going for here, not to necessarily make us think that he was, dead or anything like that. And this is House of the Dragon, but everybody is still playing the Game of Thrones. It is time to pick our player of the week, our episode MVP for this episode, titled We Light the Way. Mills, I have got to give it all the way to Lady Allison. I think she completely took control of her situation. I think she's more calculated than she's ever been. She lost some of her innocence here, albeit, I think she lost some of her good, but she is in control here. She's making power moves. She has a weak, dying, kind of meddling husband who's king. She's the one that's got this kid that should be king. I think she finally sees that she has to make some hard decisions, and she got proven wrong that she defended Rhaenyra over her father. I think that she is in control here, and man, oh man, I think she is a major fucking player moving forward.
Yeah, I guess you could call me Andre Cosine 3000 because yes, I think Allison is the clear MVP here. I honestly would struggle to find anybody else to even put in the spot. I guess maybe Damon, but that would involve again kind of rewarding him for killing his wife. So let's not do that. Let's go with Allison Hightower, MVP.
We did not attend the Citadel, but we've both used a Citadel ATM before. So that qualifies us to grade We Light the Way. And for the record, we grade each episode of House of the Dragon on a scale of 1 to 10 dragons.
I like this one, dude. Like I said, I think this is probably my favorite so far. I'm going to creep up there, dude. 9.0 dragons, dude. It's, again, maybe a couple of minor plotting things or whatever, but like I said, there was a point where I felt like this was the middle of a prime Game of Thrones episode. So 9.0 dragons, baby.
I'm right in the universe. I'm not gonna pop my cherry yet in the world of nines, but boy, oh boy, I'm getting closer. I'm close. I'm going 8.9 Magnum Mills. I'm docking it just a smidge. There were a couple things that were major items in this episode that just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. I know it's just kind of like plot point stuff that you could maybe look past, and maybe I'm just, demanding perfection here, but I didn't like the way that fight started. I didn't like the lack of control, the lack of security. Not a big fan of the whole collapse and like spending a lot of time throughout the episode and throughout the season so far on how sick he is, only to be like, yeah, he's fine. he looks like shit. I mean, he looks like the Crypt Keeper from, Tales from the Crypt here, heading into the next episode, but he's still alive. For those reasons, I'm keeping it at 8.9, but I still think that's my highest grade yet. I love this one too. This show is just getting better and better, and man, oh man, I'm glad it's out. I'm glad it's on.
This is again a spot where it probably helps to be watching on YouTube as opposed to be listening to the audio podcast, because if you don't know the Crypt Keeper, you better ask somebody, or at least Google it. Probably worth a Google, I'd say. That brings us to maybe our favorite part of the whole Game of Thrones experience. That's when we craft theories, make wild predictions, speculate, whether it be on the next episode, rest of the season, rest of the show. Please note here, we will discuss, in fact, the sneak peek the next time on trailer, about a minute long. So if you don't want to hear anything regarding that, please check out now. We'll be back next week. Otherwise, let's do this thing. Jamie G, first up, I mentioned it before, but we saw the boy Larry Strong tell Allison about the moon tea. Did he have an angle here, or why did he do that?
Oh, he's definitely got an angle. He was out there lurking around. He gave reference to this flower that shouldn't even be thriving there. I enjoyed that kind of hidden message that he started with, and he did this so calculated, so cunningly. He was absolutely spot on in how he delivered this message. He's got a play here, and we don't know what it is yet, and I think it has something to do with obviously shaping her decision on what she decides to do shapes who the next heir is. And I got to be honest with you, Magnum Mills, somebody's got to die.
If I go, you gotta go.
Somebody's got to die.
Let the gunshots blow. I'm just
shout out
curious,
Biggie. Yes.
Is he working with his pops or no? John Deere Johnson. I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes.
Like he seemed too good to be true, right? So Lionel, so I'm going with he's the one feeding this to his son. And what's Allison's deal with Sir Kristen Cole now, right? Like that's her, she's got her Luca Brasi now, so to speak. How is she going to use him?
I think that she now is going to get close to him. I think there's going to be a double cross with Rhaenyra, because she knows that that's kind of Rhaenyra's, pivot point, so to speak. I mean, I think she uses him in a variety of ways to benefit herself and benefit her angle while getting even with Rhaenyra. I don't think she's full. I think she might not ever forgive Rhaenyra for lying to her about, soiling herself and, making her kind of get her have her father fired.
I think definitely she's going to use him as a spy. That seems like a given. Does she want him to keep pumping Rhaenyra for information, so to speak? And will she be pumping, him for information, so to speak?
I sense some major BE, and based on the previews, it looks like some of those babies are coming out with black hair. So I think that they are absolutely, he is directed by his queen to continue delivering the pipe.
So he's setting up his own pumping station in the Red Keep. And speaking of pumping, is the show pump faking us? Because it seems very obvious, like Viserys should just kill over and die at any minute, right? But maybe they're setting him up to get just straight up murdered, right? We're still expecting a natural death. Wouldn't it be kind of shocking for someone to just murder him? So what do you think, dude? Is he actually going to die of natural causes or other?
Well, it has been they've made such a point to show his illness. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe you start to get some mutiny where, almost like a Succession type situation where it's like, we don't trust him with the decision he's making anymore. So the only way to get rid of him is to kill him. And maybe that's the case. Maybe they figure out a way to take care of, either Rhaenyra or Aegon, whatever they decide is the right way to go. And the only thing they need to do is get rid of Viserys. So, and maybe something happens where they need to escalate his death to be able to kind of, get the next person on the throne. At this point, Magnum Mills, because they've been having us expect a natural death, I'm going to agree and say, no way in hell. They are just going to, somebody's going to kill him.
Straight up banana the tailpipe situation.
It's gotta be.
I'm there for that. We see here we're going to get the big 10-year time jump with some of the recasting. Do you think that ends the major time jumps for the season? Maybe we get a couple months, but are we going to have any time jumps longer than a year for the rest of the season?
I'm going to say yes, but not till maybe like the last episode or something that leads into season 2.
Fair enough. And we hear that Damon had been gone, leaving the Stepstones unprotected for almost a decade. What's up with that? Is it Runestone? Did he actually take Runestone and he's there, and that's like, and does he also marry into House Valerian? Like, there's a lot going on here, right? Like, Damon's got to be up to something.
He is up to something. To me, he's the real, Charlie of the party here. He's the wild card. I know that he is still going to be a major, pivotal, big bad player. I just feel it in my heart of hearts. I just don't know how yet. And every time I think I know, he does something to make me be like, oh, maybe it's not that well thought out and executed. But then he does some other shit where it's like, oh yeah, maybe it is. So I love what they're doing with this character. And shout out to the actor. He's been in a bunch of shit. Great, great, great dude. I think it's Matt Smith. And so I don't know where the hell he's been, Magnum Mills. And the crazy thing about Damon is it's hard to, like, he's a total wild card for me. I can't wait to find out. But I don't know.
You could hear he's been living in secretly in Flea Bottom as like a commoner for 10 years, and it wouldn't shock you.
No.
Or
he's been in a whorehouse, for 10 years. I mean, who knows?
He's living in the secret passages of the Red Keep, like it's only murders in the building or whatever, just getting it done. Shout out Damon. He's going to be doing something. And we see in the sneak peek, there's a lot of new kids running around. Like, whose kid is the first one to claim a dragon? Is it one of Allison's kids, one of Rhaenyra's kids, maybe one of Damon's kids if he ever consummates the thing? Like, whose kid is the first one to claim a dragon?
I gotta believe it's Aegon, but I don't know. I'm gonna say one of Allison's kids.
See, I'm gonna go with one of Damon's kids. Like, we don't even know that he's necessarily has kids yet, but I'm going all the way there because, of course, that would how it would work, right? Like, the most illegitimate would be the one to claim it first, which would strengthen his claim, help to set up the whole, Targaryen Civil War narrative.
There is war a brewing, and listen, we know that if you want to listen to people talk about House of the Dragon, you've got more choices than I can count. Probably even Mills can count, and he is master of mathematician. We really appreciate you checking out our show. We love talking about House of the Dragon, discussing it with the community. It's a lot of fun. Please remember, we'll be here all season to break down every episode of House of the Dragon with drinking and dragons. Thanks again for checking us out. Please remember, like, subscribe, really helps us out, helps people find our show, and you can get, the ability to check out all of our other awesome content in our realm. Mills, tell these fantastic people where they can find all of our other stuff.
You just need to climb the mountain of the YouTube. Go to JoeBlowFootballShow.com to find our YouTube channel. You can find the podcast by searching for Drunk on Dragons on any major podcast platform, even some of the minor ones. We're everywhere. Wherever you get your pods, find us on social media at Drunk on Dragons. And again, over on our YouTube channel, got a bunch of stuff. We cover football. We cover other shows. We do some DFS stuff, some Dynasty Fantasy Football. Again, other shows, movie reviews. It's kind of fun. You like this? I think you'll like it. You should check it out. And thank you for checking out Drunk on Dragons. You don't have to drink, but if you're gonna, might as well be on a dragon.
Always and forever. We'll see you soon with our coverage of episode 6, titled The Princess and the Queen, which will drop on Tuesday, September 27th. Peace be well in the realm, my lords.
Thanks again for checking us out. Drunk on Dragons is an unofficial show. We are not in any way affiliated with House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin, HBO, or Warner Brothers Television. The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not reflect the views of any other persons or entities. You can contact us at drunkondragonspod@gmail.com. Please remember to like and subscribe. We'll check you out again next time for more drinking and, of course, more dragons.